Hey yogis, welcome back to the Black Swan Yoga podcast. I'm Christine Anderson.
And I'm Patsy Springer. We are so happy to have you guys join us for the ride today.
Yep, we are exploring one of our favorite books that we actually utilize in teacher training. It's called The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And we've experienced the profound benefit of implementing his concepts and these practices into our own life. And so that's why we share it in teacher training. And we thought, what a better way to introduce it to y'all on our podcast. So it will be nice and slow. We'll do one agreement per podcast. So it's digestible and applicable, and that you can kind of download it into your life in a way that makes sense for you. So
100%. This is one of those books that I've had a lot of my students and myself even say that this is life shifting. You know, it's one of those books that really impacts you, where you think about it over and over. And for me personally, I was just telling Christine that this is a book that I try to read at least once a year.
Likewise.
It is so needed to be reminded of these 4 agreements.
Yeah. It's simple, right? You know, there's just 4 of them, and we will obviously go through them. But in practice, it is a little challenging, and it really requires you to be critical thinker, and not in a way that's judgmental towards yourself, but to really look deep at your own mental patterns and habits and take a moment to pause and kind of question yourself of why you do, what you say what you say, and why you think the way you think. And it requires this like calling of, let's slow down and self-analyze what's really happening here.
Yeah, let's listen to ourselves. Let's actually take a moment to see how we are. Are we reacting? Are we responding? Are we actually moving from a place of the heart? And what's really cool too is that these 4 agreements are, Toltec agreements. So they're ancient spiritual philosophy from Mexico. And it's just agreements that really have been years and years beautifully brought by masters, and they were hidden for a long time, not able to come to the people. But Don Miguel, I think with him writing this book, and he's a Toltec master, I really think that that shift again, I feel that shift in myself when I read it, but then him putting out this book, a shift of for the world.
Yeah, it really is. And more people are finding insight from it. So it's really empowering practice. And, obviously in theory it's easy, but in practice it's challenging, like I was saying. But when you get a community of people who are doing it together, you get accountability and grace too. It's not like you fucking suck. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
But it's like, hey, I noticed the way you're thinking about that. Like, I'm curious why. Yes. And there's a lot more conversation, and it becomes a very enriching part of life. So I'm thankful that you and I and our tribe can share that with eeach other.
Big time. Yeah. I love one experience I had in particular. I remember going to another yoga teacher, a colleague of mine, and telling her, I had a bad day with someone else and just ranting about it, And she goes, well, let's look at the book. And she actually had the book with her. She took it out and she said, the first agreement we'll dive into in a moment. She said, are you being impeccable with your word? And that was a good pause of whoa, actually I need to look at myself instead of pointing my finger at someone else.
Exactly.
It's that one thing of, what your mom says, or my mom said, when you point the finger at someone else, you have 3 more pointing back at you.
Yeah.
It's always that good reminder of, well, how am I behaving right now?
And often we're projecting, and the truth is we're all mirroring each other, which is a very intense reality, to be like, you judge someone or you critique someone, but actually there might be something in them that you're actually critiquing or judging about yourself.
Big time.
Bum.
Yeah. And the plot thickens.
So yes, Patsy already shared the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. So our words are something we use day in and day out. So the power of our word is important, right? Because our words are very powerful and you can't take them back.
Don Miguel says that this is actually the most important and most powerful tool that we can give ourselves. We are the only animal on this world that actually can verbally speak.
Yes.
And so what are we putting out there? He calls it magic, double-edged sword. It could be, the beautiful love and heartfelt magic that we send out, or the other side of the sword. He calls it black magic. Black magic. Oh, creepy.
I'm sorry.
But it could be this place of destruction, depending on how we use our words.
Yeah.
I like how we are doing like little sound effects today. Black magic.
So this really gets me thinking. When I start thinking about these concepts, I start pulling from other schools of thought and how it relates and how it connects and different perspectives. So I've been rereading the Bhagavad Gita and I'm paraphrasing this quote, but I've been percolating this quote for months now. And it really relates to this first agreement. So basically the thought is, just as a seed produces one particular tree or fruit or plant, so goes with the thoughts that we think. And I've just been like really thinking about that. And even before we speak, it comes from a thought, right? And so our words are actual manifestation of the thoughts that we are thinking.
Yes. And they say that there's always two directions of our thoughts. It's either fear-based or it's love-based, just like that double-edged sword. Yeah. There's no in between. It's always like when we even like anger. Are we angry out of love? Usually we're angry because of fear, something that we're afraid of, jealousy, resentment, whatever. It's all anger and fear-based.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. It makes it a little more simple.
Yeah.
You're like, where's this? Is it an place of anger or is it a place of love?
Right. Looking at the root, the seed of it.
It is. And it's so important because the seed is so tiny and yet it produces so much life, right? And sometimes if we're not careful or aware of the thoughts that we're thinking, then we speak these words and then we're in this place of like, oh, fuck, I want to take that back. And you can't. And I know I've done it myself. I've said things where I'm like, oh man, I really wish I took a moment to pause and not say something.
Absolutely. I mean, we're human. But it's really beautiful that we can see those moments.
Become aware.
Yes. That's what I find gratitude in. It's like I can move forward knowing, well, fuck, like that wasn't something I wanted to do or say. That's
Did
not
you just
how
want to
I
say
felt.
fuck?
I did.
Okay.
Definitely.
Great.
Fuck.
So, and it's, I think that's part of it. So with these agreements, when we continue to explore them, it's not about critiquing and judging yourself. It's about creating awareness about you and your constant flow of conversation in your mental space and then what comes out of your mouth. Yes. I don't think we should shy away from expressing either, right? It's not just like, don't speak.
Right. I think that's part of being impeccable with your word. If you don't express yourself, it's going to get stagnant in your body. We've spoken about the throat chakra, and it just will stay there and it could manifest into something worse physically. Yeah. So there's definitely but I think what Don Miguel is saying is that there's a way to express it. How am I saying this right now? Am I picking just the most, the first words that come to mind, just fuck,
right.
Or can I actually say something that's a little bit more elegant and maybe more kind for the person receiving it?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And because it's not just about what we need to get off our chest. And yes, like it's important to be able to have people that you can vent to, but being mindful in even your venting, like what are you putting out there? What are you extending? Are you blaming someone? Are you critiquing someone? Are you expressing jealousy? It's interesting because it makes me think for a second, like what you were saying of like, if you don't let something out, it can really boil and bubble up and turn into something like resentment or bitterness. And I have the philosophy of the power of vulnerability, and sharing is a releasing of darkness or fear or being in this like whimsical place of being confused. So sharing is important. And maybe we just take a little bit more time to be eloquent with our words and just more mindful of the languaging, the vernacular, the words that we're actually choosing and how they actually mean something to someone.
I know there's so many words that we can choose from. Something that I personally decided to do a long time ago was to make my vocabulary better and bigger.
Broader,
Yeah. And so I try to just about every other week, I pick a word or two that my partner and I try to like incorporate into our lives. Yeah.
How cute.
It's not, sometimes we fall off the routine, but it really, I love doing that. I learn something. And I also feel like I can express myself more detailed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's because words have different meaning.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So I also, one of another school of thought that I pull from is from nonviolent communication, NVC, which comes from Marshall Rosenberg, who's a psychologist and who created the concept of nonviolent communication in the 1960s. And it has revolutionized partnerships, friendships, even civilizations of people in terms of their interactions and the way that they are communicating with one another. It has relieved tension and a lot of miscommunication that comes with being human, like we were talking about. And they're very simple procedures to basically remove the gap of miscommunication. Because you might say something to me and how you communicate, I interpret it entirely differently. And then I take it and I might not say something and I just receive it like that. And I have this image of what you just said to me without actually clarifying.
And it could be something totally different.
Exactly.
How you perceive and how
then,
I articulate.
Yeah, exactly. So the 4 steps are to observe. So being aware of your own mental thought. And so you're very observant of, I'm observing the situation. Then the second pillar, you could say, is expressing your feelings, but not in thought. So not saying this is what I think, but this is how I feel. So it's getting deeper than thought, right? You know, and then following that, then you move into clarifying the thought that the person is feeling. So the person reports back. So I'm hearing you're saying that you feel this in this situation.
So the first 2 steps are for both people.
You can go back both ways.
And feel.
Yeah, and feel.
Tell them how you feel.
So one person could be taking a moment to like, I'm the person that wants to share the situation that I'm going through.
Yeah.
And I'm observing it. And then you could actually observe back.
As well.
Yeah. So that brings in the concept of empathy. So you're being with that person, right? And then you are moving to the feeling world. So you're removing the potential of blame.
Right. So I might be observing, her body language. I can tell that maybe she's a little fearful as she's saying this. This is a difficult thing for her.
It's about expressing. And then you move into clarifying. So you are moving towards a request. So I request that you, for example, like let's say a whole situation is there's a couple living together, and instead of saying, before you leave, don't forget to do the dishes. This would be an idea of nonviolent this would be violent communication, because you're saying, don't forget.
Oh, with a negative.
With a negative. So instead, be like, I am observing that you might, I'm observing we're both really busy, and
could you please?
Yeah. I'm feeling, and then you go into feeling. So I'm feeling very overwhelmed by the fact that we're leaving dirty dishes. Okay, that would be your feeling rather than your thought. And then that person would write back and say, okay, I'm understanding that you're feeling overwhelmed. Yeah. And then you express your request. Can you please, or will you remember to do the dishes before you leave tonight?
Wow. I could see that being so powerful, especially in relationships.
Yes.
You know, like if you're in living relationships, roommate situations, somewhere that you're really close, working together, that clarity. Yeah. And I really love using positive words instead of negative words like don't, not, you know. That was something that's huge in mantra too. Yeah. Always say affirmations with positive.
Yeah, it's an affirmation.
Yes.
So, and it's just, it's even though it's very like a method, and it might seem like very like rigid and formal, but it doesn't matter. It's a great way to just clearly articulate what's going on emotionally within you, because if we move from a place of being reactive, then that person is going to potentially react back to you. And it's just a cycle of like being like,
yes,
you know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. And I
winning
mean,
a battle.
Like, totally, like fire and gas.
Yeah.
I love that. So let's say the steps one more time. So it's
observe,
and then feelings, and then
finding the clarity, asking questions.
Finding the clarity.
So if there's any questions that need to be formalized, and then asking for a request.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. That is really, really good. I can't wait to share that with Chad.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and it's it might feel strange in the beginning. Maybe you don't want to like put in those all into practice, but one that's really simple is just asking questions to clarify.
Yeah.
And just saying, hey, I hear you. I hear that you're saying this in this moment. Can you elaborate?
Yeah. Do you think that I'm not cleaning my dishes?
Yeah.
Or maybe no, that's the negative word. But
right. So there's more critical thinking that happens. Yeah.
Are you feeling that I could be carrying more weight? You know, that I could be doing more, just to clarify,
balance the load.
With that, the calmness is so important, like staying calm while you have these types of conversations, because you are telling each other how you feel rather than how you're thinking
about it. Yeah. Because it's also when you're expressing your feelings about something, that is more heart to heart. That's the vulnerability, and that's removing the barrier of just the critical thinking.
Right. Because a lot of times our mind will say, well, that's embarrassing that I feel, overwhelmed over the dishes. So I'm not going to express that. In fact, instead, I'm just going to be really rude to them.
And just hold it in and have resentment and then bitterness. And that boils up into, an argument that's not even about the dishes and it's about something else. But it all started with the simple thing of not doing the dishes.
So you go straight to the heart of how you feel. And then you find your words. What word can I use here to really express how I feel?
Yeah. Because like you were saying with your friend, your teacher, she was trying to get you to think like, are you in a place of blame? Like, are you pointing fingers, right? Like you were saying. And so it's trying to remove the desire to just blame and to point a finger.
Right.
And it's like, it's actually having more responsibility for your own thoughts and feelings and emotions.
Right. And that's huge. I mean, that's like a huge like secret to life, is taking responsibility for how you feel.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be a whole different podcast.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah. Just going back to being impeccable with your word. I love how he actually goes into the book to talk about what the word impeccable means. It's a Latin word and it means without sin. Yeah. And what he says is this: we're not talking about religion or morals. Without sin in this respect is we're not going against ourselves. And so what we put out there is going to be, as Christine was saying a moment ago, that mirror back. It's going to be bounced back. So what I put out there, I want to put out good juju, good love, and, respect and kindness, forgive, all of it, because it's going to bounce back to me. That's just the way it works.
It does. It's pretty wild. And you see it in relationships all the time. The name game, the blaming. I think another way to be really impeccable with your word, especially in a relationship, friendship, or an intimate romantic relationship, is something I took from my past relationship. We had a rule of like no name calling. Just because it's like, where does that come from? It comes from fear, it comes from jealousy, it comes from insecurity. It's not coming from a place of love.
Right. And it's so hurtful. The name calling, especially when you're close, like an intimate relationship, romantic, what names that you could really call that is going to get underneath their skin and stick with them.
Right.
And it does. The word, it really hurts. And he talks about how words as children really do go back into it.
Yeah.
And,
you're right. And no, it just made me think of this book. It also says like, the idea of like black magic is if I were to call a friend, like we were reading, like, you're so stupid. Or even if it wasn't directly, like if I was to tell Patsy like, oh, so-and-so is such a stupid bitch.
Right.
That's still energetic.
Ooh.
gossip.
Yes. And then it's bouncing back to you.
And not only to me, but it's still out there.
Oof.
It's in your mind now.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It might change the way you see that person.
Mm-hmm. And so what could we change about that specific phrasing? Like, let's say you are so revved up about whatever, whoever. And so you want to say,
they are a stupid bitch. So you would say instead, because that's putting an identity or label on that person. So you could say, that person's acting like a stupid bitch. No, I'm serious. I know it sounds like the same thing, but the energy, the intention is in your mind, you are not allowing yourself to be like, this Sarah or whatever is a stupid bitch.
Right.
But she's just, in my experience right now, she's acting like a stupid bitch.
Because she's not really, I mean, you still recognize that she has that light in her. That because everyone has that light in them.
Yeah, light and love is the core of our being. Yeah.
And I even want to take it like just a step further with that is take a moment to say to yourself, am I helping the situation or am I really being destructive right now? And so maybe say, how can we help Sarah, to start really finding a little bit more education for herself? Or,
Sarah, if you're out there, we're not talking about
No.
It just popped into my head.
We love Sarah deeply.
All the Sarahs.
Dearly. Yes, all of them. But how can we help, whoever it is, to really find more empowerment of themselves. Compassion. Because there's obviously something going on with them too. If they're acting out, behaving a certain way, how can I help this situation? Is my word destructive or is it helpful?
Yeah. You're right. Because in the situation, whatever she did, whether she was late or she was forgetful, it's not about me in that moment.
Right.
Something is going on with her.
Yeah.
And so we are so quick as humans to be like, it's all about me.
Right. We're
and
the center of the universe.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like taking a moment and being like, oh, wait, they're having a moment. They're having an experience. They're frustrated. They're going through something. Okay, it's not about me.
Right.
And have the maturity to say, like what you were saying, like, how can I be of service?
Yes.
Is there anything I can do to like love her, to empower her, to just be a listening ear?
Definitely. And that really expands your horizons too. That I think it's healing for you to help other people. It is for me.
Yes.
Deeply. I love that. It's just watching your word. And even if, let's say you're like, I don't actually want to ask the question of how can I help her in particular. I just really need to rant. I just really need to get this off my chest. Then I think that I know that there's still a better way to say it instead of she's a stupid bitch.
Yeah.
Something like, I'm really
going through the NVC.
Yes.
Observing. Sarah was late and forgot this. And I am feeling really frustrated and overwhelmed because she forgot these things.
I'm noticing I'm becoming resentful.
Yeah. All those things. And then you clarify
Sarah
back to you.
Would be sitting here listening.
Well, maybe not
observing, or maybe it's someone else.
Maybe it's I'm venting to you
me.
About it.
And so I would observe you.
And
so
you would say it back to me.
Yes.
So I'm hearing
what
you
I'm
would say,
hearing is that you really feel like you've been working a lot and bearing more of the weight because Sarah might not be doing as much or keeping it positive. So you feel like you're bearing more weight because she's been late, because she hasn't done her work. And it's facts too.
It's facts. Yep. And then you would say, after I express my feelings of, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed or frustrated with this behavior, because the behavior is not a labeling of an identity on someone. It's an action that they're taking.
Right. Because the person could change.
Right.
And that is a huge point to always remember.
Yeah.
People can change, especially if we can just communicate to them.
Yeah.
Wow. So
then you would continue.
Yeah. With a question.
You would reflect back to me.
Okay.
So I'm hearing you say.
That you're doing a lot of work these days.
And you would even report back to my feelings.
And that you are feeling tired and overworked. And overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And then the request.
So then
how can I help you? What can I do in this situation?
Yeah. Yeah. And then we figure out a solution together.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Let's try to help Sarah.
Maybe we should get Sarah to be a little bit more organized. Maybe she feels overwhelmed.
Maybe she doesn't know how to use Google Docs.
Yeah. So it's factual and it's a method.
Helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. And it just shows too, your word can have an impact for change.
Yes.
Huge
Positive or
change.
negative.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, I think back to like elementary school, and when a teacher was like, there's a troublemaker or a class clown, and they get labeled, you're the class clown. Mm-hmm. And they carry that identity with them through their whole life. And even if they don't like even as an adult, I have met people who are like, I was always the class clown.
Right.
And I'm like, but where do they get that from? They got that from a teacher.
I know.
Calling them that. Mm-hmm. And then they've like embodied that identity.
Right. And even if they're not even, feeling like they're a funny human being or like they really don't, maybe they don't care to go to the side of sense of humor that much. And it can be really conflicting.
Yeah.
And what we say to the children is so important. And I mean, to each other as well, of course, but children, they absorb everything. They're like sponges. As we get older, we learn that we can actually have boundaries and barriers and we can filter. But children, they don't. And so when we say shut up, or we say you're stupid, or that you are the class clown, it sticks.
Yeah.
It just sticks and they remember it and they hold on to it. Maybe they don't remember it, but they hold on to it and they grow up to be conflicted. Like, oh, I can't sing because my mom told me shut up, or
right. Exactly. And then they don't take the opportunities that they really want. Their heart's desire is like, do this. And then in the back of their head, they don't even know where it came from. But, oh, so-and-so said I was stupid. Like, I can't amount to that. I'm not going to apply for that job.
Right.
And it really is our words can literally make someone's experience, rob someone from their experience. And that to me, I'm like, I want to be mindful of, whoa, especially as on here and as a yoga instructor, I really try to be mindful of the way I communicate to students, and to be a place of empowerment and a safe place where they feel strong and in their bodies, and not, taking away negative energy, from the experience. Yeah.
Like when one of my students, when they, I hear this often, like, oh, I can't do that. Yeah. I'm like, where did you get that from? Because let's go back to, yoga. A lot of the physical postures, it starts with your mind. All of them, they start with your mind. If you really think about yourself doing it, if you believe that you can do it, then it's going to be easier for your body to transform into the alignment of the steps to get there. Yeah.
And giving, maybe people need a different avenue. In our mind, for me, I have realized I'm really trying to be more and more aware of my communication skill, because I'm very blunt, and I am very much like, this is it.
To the point.
And that can be very helpful, but it's a double-edged sword.
It's so helpful for me. Like our relationship with that, I live off of that. I thrive off of that.
But not everyone does.
Right. Not everyone does at all, really.
No. Yeah. So, and I've realized that like the hard way. And so just learning how to bring that softness back into it and pausing. Like I'm just like, all right, let's get some shit done. And I'm just like, let's go. And not everyone works at the same speed or intensity. I'm like, let's work so we can like play.
Right. You work hard to play hard.
Yeah, I do. And but I need to remember like that's someone else's time.
Right.
Their energy. How is their day playing out? And being sensitive.
Right. It's a balance, because on the flip side of that, why I'm saying that our relationship with you being that way works is because I've been on the side of things, I'm sure everyone has, where you can have that energy that something isn't clicking with you and another person. And it's because they are thinking that something about you that needs to change, but they're not expressing it. And, in my head, I'm like, just tell me whatever it is. Like, just like say the words. Right. Yeah. I'm like, because that's how we've been saying, create change. Let Sarah know that there are Google documents.
Bring it back. Yeah. And it goes back to our voice, and the chakra of our throat is this energetic space of communication and expression, but it's also listening.
Yes.
Right.
Big time.
And so I feel like even on this, platform of we're working together to be active listening and moving back and forth And we're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You're responding to what I'm saying and vice versa. And it's this ongoing dialogue.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I love it. And this is how we communicate.
It is. It's amazing.
Tell me again the name of the nonviolent communication.
Yeah.
Who created
Marshall Rosenberg.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Nonviolent communication. You can look up NVC. And they actually have like trainings and programs in over like 65 countries. It's pretty
that's
profound.
beautiful. Yeah. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
We need, that's like
more.
The good hard work. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard work.
World. Mm-hmm.
But it's great. It's transformative.
Big time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I think you brought it back to yoga, and it brings me back to also ahimsa of nonviolence.
Mm-hmm.
And, our inner dialogue is really important, because a lot of times if we're in our inner dialogue, influences or leaks into our outer dialogue of what we say to ourselves or to other people. And I think it's just being mindful of those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, when someone says like, I can't do that, or I'm not good enough, I'm, in my blunt nature, really like to call people out when I hear someone say that, because I care. And I'm like, well, why would you say that? Or I don't think this opportunity is going to happen. And maybe it doesn't happen, but it's just like, can we be in a place of just projecting positive potential?
Infinite.
Yeah. Limitless.
Yes, please.
All of it, right?
And your thoughts are so huge. I catch myself going in, into thought, whenever I'm just driving, meditating, and I'll just feel a thought pop up. And I usually will say to myself, that was fear-based. That was so fear-based right now, Patsy. Yeah, so I try to replace it immediately. Yeah. Like, let's say, because right now, it's kind of a crazy, amazing time in my life.
Yes,
I'm moving and I'm getting ready to get married, and then we're going to Tulum together. So we have a really exciting time coming up, but it's a transitional period right now, a lot of preparation. And just this morning driving here, I had this thought of like, what if something goes wrong? What if this isn't the right place? Or, something like, it was just like a feeling, like a pit in my stomach. And I had to take a deep breath, because if I don't catch myself like observing,
in that moment,
then it'll actually become something a lot bigger.
It's a poison.
And I'll notice I'll be short with people. I notice like my energy is very different if I'm not careful with myself.
Yeah.
So I try to switch that. And so I just thought of myself in my new home, and it, I felt very safe and protected and just at home. I really had to take a moment to see how it felt.
You will be at home and nurtured in your nest.
Thank you.
It's going to be beautiful. And I'm going to come over.
Oh, you're going to be,
all the time.
She's going to be living with me pretty much.
Yeah. So I think too, actually yesterday, this is a really silly story, but in Austin, we have this thing called Barton Springs. It's this giant pool that's a natural spring, and it's constantly 67 or 68 degrees. So, that's what it is all year long. And I have been taking cold showers every morning and doing Wim Hof breathing. And he's known for being this Iceman. And there's a point, I promise. So it's been really, in the beginning of these ice showers, I do them every morning since the beginning of the year. In the beginning, I was like resenting it and just not looking forward to it. And now I'm just like, turn it on, get in there. And like, I don't have even a moment where I react. It's just like, let's get in. It's still intense. I promise. Like, it's not like easier.
I promise.
But I just noticed the mental game. And when I used to swim in Barton Springs, I would be like this huge buildup of like, I'm going to get into the water and it's cold and I'm scared and like it's freezing. I'm going to have this heart attack and like I have this like asphyxiation that I can't like breathe or I'm not going to be able to swim. I would like build up this whole story.
And that fear makes it so much worse. That story that we keep telling ourselves.
Exactly. Oh. And then I've been going the past, week or so, and I just walk down the grassy knoll. The grass. I just wanted to say that. And I walk up to the water and I don't even like allow myself. It's not even a negative not allowing myself. I just don't have the need to allow my to percolate over those negative thoughts and those fears. And I just go right in.
You overcome it.
And literally I walk down to the edge and just like jump in the water.
Yes.
And I was with a friend yesterday and I'm like swimming around. I'm like, great. Like I'm awesome. And he's standing there just watching me. And he was like, you're not going to like talk about it and like build it up before you get down. And it was just this moment of like, oh, I've changed.
Yeah.
And like realizing it. And I don't know if it's the cold showers but I think
Cryo.
it's the cryo. I've been doing cryotherapy, but I think it's just like the mental game of it.
Yeah, I think so too. You change your thoughts.
Yeah, you really can.
And it's also one of those things I feel like is also, I used to like quote Nike all the time. I'd be like, just do it.
Yeah. But
Just
it is like
do
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, don't give yourself an opportunity to go into that fear.
Yeah.
And so if we can't go into like this like positivity with it, like if we're not like that built up for that, if that's just not capable at that moment, just do it. Just don't let yourself go into the fear, into that story.
Yeah. And maybe entertain just we're all in a dream all the time. We're reflecting, we're in a dream. We're in this illusion world. It's wild. But what if we just entertain infinite potential? And I've been exploring that and without being attached to like the big dream. And it's fun and it's freeing and I'm not attached to the result. I'm like, well, what if? You know, what if this could happen? And why not allow yourself the freedom to think outside the box? And even though you might not have the resources or the funds, just allowing your mind to wander into those places, I find can be really beneficial. And I think for me has been the rewiring of my thoughts.
I believe that.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. And it's exciting.
It is. Yeah.
It's so exciting. And that's work as well.
Yeah.
You know, we mentioned hard work earlier. It's work to observe your thoughts, observe how we talk to ourselves, and then rewire that. Train yourself into that positive space, into that infinite possibility.
Yeah. You know, actually, to get real honest, I didn't share this in my story, and I was thinking about it because I interviewed you last week and I interviewed Maddie. And part of my story was in my early adolescence, I had disordered eating situation. I dealt with like anorexia and bulimia and like poor just self-image. And I like overcame those portions in high school. But they like there's a residue of it, like definitely in college. And even in my last relationship, like earlier on, I would say it's negative things about myself. Like, oh, like I look bad in this, or like I look fat, or whatever it was. And I'm so grateful because my partner at the time, he was really into NVC, nonviolent communication. And he would be like, why are you saying that to yourself? You know, and like, please consider like changing the way you speak to yourself.
Yes.
And then those moments, like literally it was like 2 weeks, like it just went away. And now it is that mantra of affirmation. And like, it's kind of wild because I was thinking about it and I'm like, man, like I don't think like that anymore. Like I eat what I want to eat. I take really good care of my body. And I'm like, I want to feel good, like in my own mindset towards myself, right? Because that's fear and that's not true. And anyways, to expand upon that, I feel like that also helped me create new patterns and new loops of thought. And I wanted to say something else about it too, but external validation. So I was always, what really was happening when I was saying those thoughts of like, I don't like look at this. I was really looking for him to say, oh, you look gorgeous.
Right. Instead of finding it from yourself.
But what I was doing is he recognized that and was like, no, you got to do that yourself.
Yes.
And now I'm like, with relationships, with partnerships, whatever, I'm like, I don't need it from anyone else.
No, because if you're only looking for it from other people, then it's not real. It's not sturdy. It's not something that is going to last. You know,
it's fleeting.
The only validation that you can have that lasts is for yourself, from yourself, for yourself.
Yeah. And now I'm just like, it really does come back from affirmation. And doing, and Patsy and I led you through that chakra visualization. Like I do that a lot for myself. And finding that inner power, that clears the channel.
So when you start noticing yourself speaking to yourself that way, do you have any tricks or anything that you'd like to give our listeners of what you do personally of like, you know, how to help yourself?
Yeah, I think, well, one, like, it's just owning it, like being in your body. I think that's why the practice of yoga, I think, has been so healing for you, for me, for our listeners, for you guys, is because it gets you out of the thinking mind more into your physical body.
Yeah.
Right. And it's very healing. It's empowering. You feel really strong. You're like, wow, I'm doing this. And so really honoring that part of it.
And you take responsibility for it. Like no one else is doing the yoga for you.
Yep.
You've got to show up on your mat. You're the one who does your practice.
Yeah. And also my other tool is the NVC of like really thinking about how I'm looking. Obviously the 4 agreements, the being impeccable with your word, because I'm really aware that you either can create this beautiful magic of light and love, or you can create black magic.
Yes.
And if I'm speaking negatively to myself, how does that influence other people?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It really, I mean, he calls it a living hell.
Yeah, it is.
You know, it's, if you're speaking negatively to yourself, then that's probably how you're going to project to other people. And that's probably what you're going to get back.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, 100%. And it's to go on the other side of it. He even talks about you can either be in this living hell or you can be like heaven on earth.
Right. And that's, I mean, and that is the truth. I
really
feel
is.
like since I've started to change my own thoughts as well. Yes.
You seem so bright.
Thank you. Yeah. I feel that way. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I feel great about myself. I feel great about life. And it's, you know, sometimes I catch myself of like waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I'm like, no, it's infinite.
Yeah.
I need to think about more possibility. Yeah. Like just keep creating more and more because you can do it. This is not some secret that only Christine and I have, or only a few people like we're sharing with you. You can create the life that you want to live, that you dream of living, truly.
Yeah. And I think to just wrap up, some teacher said this in a class, and now I say it too from time to time, is you are seen, you are heard, you are loved, and we love you.
Yes.
Know that you are beautiful, that you're sexy, that you're handsome, whatever you are trying to embody. You already are all those things. And it's really about finding that jewel within. Like you are an embodiment of love and light.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Remember the 3 gates for your word to go through.
Remind us.
Anytime that you speak, and I might have the order out a little bit, but anytime you speak, ask yourself if your word is true. Is it kind? And is it necessary? Is it necessary?
Yeah.
And then I'll leave you with just a little thing from Don Miguel. He says, be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love.
Beautiful. Communicate from your heart.
Yeah.
You know,
and
blend the gap. Your throat, your place of communication lives between heart and mind. So it's a balance of marrying those two together.
Yeah. And as we said, it's work, but it's worth it. Yeah.
And also the last thing I think is silence is okay.
Oh, yeah. Like if it doesn't pass through those 3 gates, if it's not necessary, silence is beautiful.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
silence.
Communication.
Yes.
Yeah. And also body language. That is also your, way to communicate. So.
Big time. Observe.
Open up, receive, open heart. Yeah. Speak from a place of expansive qualities rather than a crowded, small posture. Yeah.
I love how we both just said like last thing, really. Like it's because there's so much that, and this is as we said, this is the most powerful tool. This is the most important of the 4 agreements because you can change the world with your word. You can change your world too. You know, it starts with yourself, and the gates that are going to open for you, the gates that you're going to break are so profound.
Yeah. It's liberating.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah. So let us know how it goes, please. We'd love to hear from you. Christine and I both really enjoy connecting with people. We are people.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much for tuning in with us here at the Black Swan Yoga podcast. We love you guys. And until next time,
Namaste.